Okay, let's talk about that feeling. You know the one, that sense of constant chaos at work? We're going to get right into it and dismantle something the source material calls the panic of prediction. All right, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Think about that last big all-hands meeting. You know, the one with the bold new vision for the future? Well, here's the secret. Your CEO? They're guessing. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? It's this huge gap between what we think is happening and what's actually happening. We imagine the C-suite has some kind of crystal ball, that they see all the data, all the trends, clear as day. But the reality, especially right now, it's a lot more like panic scrolling for answers and, yeah, basically just throwing darts in the dark.
So that whole throwing darts in the dark thing, well, it leads us right to the main idea we're unpacking today. The source material actually gives this whole phenomenon a name, and just understanding what it is, that's the first step to dealing with it.
So here it is, the panic of prediction. What does that even mean? It's basically what happens when the market gets all volatile and shaky, and leaders are forced to make these huge guesses, right? But here's the catch. They can't exactly walk into a meeting and say, we have no idea. No, instead, that guess gets all wrapped up and presented to everyone like it's a super confident, bulletproof strategic plan.
And this slide just nails that disconnect, doesn't it? The CEO's guess is called a strategic pivot. But what does that actually look like for you? A hiring freeze, out of nowhere. They talk about increased efficiency, and you're watching your budget get slashed to the bone. You sit through a big, confident meeting and then get these totally vague emails that just leave you with more questions than you started with.
And you know, this isn't just a simple case of bad communication. It's a whole process. That anxiety from the top, it doesn't just stay locked away in the boardroom. It has a way of spreading. So let's trace how it actually works. You've heard the saying, right? Stuff rolls downhill. Well, anxiety is no different. It kicks off with confusion at the very top. Leadership is panicking about the market. Next up, the guessing game begins. They're scrambling for a solution. And then, that uncertainty starts trickling down, manager by manager. And where does it end up? Right on your plate. It becomes your burden. You're the one carrying all the emotional weight of a guess someone else made. So if you've been feeling like the ground at work is constantly shifting beneath you, if you've got this constant hum of anxiety about your job, the source material says you're not imagining things. You're not going crazy. You're just downstream from all that chaos at the top. And wow, this one really hits home. It gets to the very core of why so many of us feel burnt out. It's not always about the work itself, is it? It's the whiplash. That constant dizzying feeling of trying to follow leaders who are also lost. Okay, but this is the turning point, right here. We've talked about the problem, we've diagnosed it. Now let's talk about what to do. Because you do not have to let their panic predict your future. You actually have a choice here. So the big question is, how? How do you do that? Well, the good news is the source material doesn't just leave us hanging with the problem. It actually lays out a path forward. It's about shifting from just listening to all the noise and panic to actively building something solid for yourself. And really, the big idea is pretty simple when you think about it. You can't build a stable career on something as shaky as shifting sand. And that's what corporate panic is. It's what a CEO's guess is. You need your own foundation, something that's going to hold steady, even when everything else is shaking. So the source suggests a sort of toolkit to get this done. And it's broken down into a few layers. First, you've got the foundational blueprints, just getting the core ideas down. Then you move into hands-on workshops to really build skills. And finally, it gets into personalized strategy for your own situation. Let's take a closer look at what that path actually looks like. It starts with some free episodes, which is great for anyone who's just kind of exploring these concepts. Then, if you're ready to move from just listening to actually building, there are these 8-week workshop modules. And for folks who really need tailored guidance, like managers, there's live coaching and strategy training for those super specific concerns. And hey, if any of this is resonating with you and you want to dig deeper, the source material points to a bunch of resources. We've got websites, social handles, YouTube, and of course, your favorite podcast app. So there are plenty of places to go if you want to explore more. Which really brings us to the final and honestly the most important question. This is the big takeaway from all of this. We've seen how all that panic from the top trickles down and affects us. So the question you have to ask yourself is this. If you're not going to build your career on their panic, what are you building it on? What's your foundation going to be?